Ever since I stumbled upon this little web series back in the summer of 2018 called Local 58, I have been absolutely obsessed with analog horror. If you don't know, analog horror is best described as found footage that was either broadcasted or distributed at one point, either privately or publicly. And of course, this concept eventually got to the Five Nights at Freddy's series, with the craze of FNAF VHS-style videos from a while back. In retrospect, the concept of analog horror and the Five Nights lore seems to be a perfect match. But although a lot of them are impressive in their own right, one stands out from all the rest, mainly because it follows a storyline where Fazbear Entertainment wasn't the only shady company behind a restaurant with a shady past. This is the Walten Files, an analog horror series based on the FNAF franchise. Whether you are now just learning about the series, or have been aware of it since its debut like I have, there are probably a lot of unanswered questions on your mind regarding it. At the time of this video's creation, the Walten Files has 3 canon episodes, with a 4th one in the works. Even though the series is nowhere near finished, there is a lot of content here to dissect. And while I'm not here to explain everything, I will cover a good portion of some key factors regarding the little and big things respectively that have happened since the conception of Bunny Smiles Incorporated. This is the Walten Files Iceberg Explained. This iceberg was a combination of 2 icebergs created by Reddit users Silent Stranger 4 and Forsaken String 6. Their icebergs will be linked in the description below for you to check out yourself. And obviously, this video will contain spoilers for the entirety of the Walten Files. If you haven't watched them for yourself already, I'd recommend clicking off this video to go watch them, then come back. And one last thing, the thumbnail art of Bon was provided by my friend Leah or Grayiskis. Their Instagram will be linked below if you wish to check out her art. But without any further delay, let's take a dive below the waves. Company Introductory Tape. Introductory Tape is the first episode of the Walten Files. It serves to introduce us to the animatronic entertainment restaurant Bon's Burgers, as well as the founders Felix Kranken and Jack Walten. It also gives us an introduction to the animatronics, this gang being known as the Showstoppers. We'll go more into detail of every member of the Showstoppers when we get to them. The description of this video reads, Tape 1. This is a compilation of tapes provided by the already extinct Bunny Smiles company. I tried to get as much info as I could about what these tapes are. All I could find is that these tapes were handed to new employees back in 1974 to 1979. The rest of the tapes seem to be recorded by a new facility caretaker in the year 1982. Hopefully, I can find more tapes soon. Anthony. Bon. Since Bon is the mascot of Bunny Smiles Inc. and the main antagonist of the Walten Files, I suppose I should go more in depth about who he is before I mention the other characters. Bon is the leader of the animatronics, the Freddy Fazbear of this establishment, if you will. His character has been more fleshed out as the series has gone on, going from only seemingly being a mascot character to having a more fleshed out personality by Tape 3. After the shutdown of Bon's Burgers, the real-life Bon animatronic became extremely violent, being the cause of many deaths under the Bunny Smiles Inc. company. There are 2 key factors on what could have caused the Bon animatronic to start acting like this. The first reason will be explained now. The second reason is a little more complicated and involves more context that later entries will explain better. Jack Walten. Jack Walten is the co-founder of Bunny Smiles Inc., seemingly going missing just 2 weeks before the opening of the first Bon's Burgers restaurant. Pictures of him are scattered throughout the 3 episodes, being shown with an incredibly malformed face. The reason why it is believed Jack disappeared was because he was unknowingly stuffed into the Bon animatronic. Jack is also a husband and a father. He is the husband of Rosemary Walten, and the father of a girl named Sophie, the supposed protagonist of the Walten Files. Although we do not know exactly how he disappeared, it is believed that his business partner and friend, Felix Kranken, had a major role to play in the disappearance of Jack. We'll get to exactly why in a bit. Relocate Project. This is the second tape in the Walten Files series. Although we will go a lot more in depth with the tragedies the Relocate Project has brought forth later, the general consensus was that after the disappearance of Jack Walten and the shutdown of Bon's Burgers, Felix Kranken took it upon himself to go through 4 years of legal battles to get everything from the now defunct Bon's Burgers establishment, put it all in a storage facility, and planned to relocate the building to somewhere else, restarting the Bon's Burgers brand and saving the company. This never got through to fruition though, and the reasons why will become more obvious as we go deeper. We'll also go a lot more into the character of Felix Kranken in his own entry later on, There is a lot to unpack with him especially. Sophie Walten. As I mentioned earlier, Sophie Walten is the daughter of Jack and Rosemary Walten. She seems to be suffering from severe memory loss due to her medication she is taking, and hardly remembers her childhood or the horrors that happened during it. It is unknown who prescribes her this medication, and if the memory loss side effects are intentional or not. We get a lot of hints throughout the series about her early life and what happened to her during her time as an active BSI employee, which we know she was at one point, as we see her in a BSI uniform all the way back in Tape 1. As of now, she is the last remaining member of the Walten family alive, or not possessing anything as we know currently. Her strongest appearance is in Tape 3. Speaking of which, Bunny Farm. As of now, Bunny Farm is the latest tape in the Walten Files series. It follows Sophie discovering an old game made by the BSI company that was never released to the public. She is seen in the tape documenting her findings as she plays it. Bunny Farm is also the longest tape out of the bunch so far, meaning that this entry is packed full of stuff that we can't even scratch the surface of right now as to not spoil further entries. But trust me, this tape will come up a lot as we go on. Banny. Banny is a purple rabbit animatronic and one of the 4 showstoppers of Bond's Burgers. Her personality is particularly hyper and all over the place, which tires a lot the other supporting cast, especially Bond, who seems to have an underlying dislike for Banny in particular, and the characterized interactions we see of her. The animatronic version of her is a lot more interesting though, and there's a very key reason to that. Susan Woodings. On the topic of Banny, Susan Woodings was the head engineer of Bunny Smiles Inc. She was also the head designer for the Showstoppers crew, and most likely worked alongside Jack Walten and Felix Kranken. She is also the first BSI employee other than Jack to die. Her body was later stuffed into the Banny animatronic. Her most notable role as of now is in Tape 2, the Relocate Project. Susan is first seen underneath Banny's head, which is an indicator that she is inside the Banny animatronic. One of the most disturbing scenes from this series thus far is definitely the scene of Susan's death. After being stuffed into the Banny suit, Susan is shown trying to escape a square room with 4 doors. In the background, a narrator can be heard, telling us about the rabbit's desperate attempts to flee while Susan runs around various doors. After a while of trying to escape, Susan realizes that her attempts were fruitless and begins to cry. Susan's death is long, painful, and lonely, as she dies of starvation. For a split second, an image of Banny trapped in a cage is shown, symbolic of Susan's own feelings about being trapped in the Banny animatronic. Afterwards, Susan's missing poster is shown, where she was last seen on the 30th of June, 1974. The Showstoppers. Although this is the name of the animatronic group at Bond's Burgers, it was also an album made by Martin Walls. This video is a canon entry to the Walten Files lore as well, as we can see whoever uploaded it put a description to it as well. It reads, "This is an album that contains songs from the Showstoppers, a band from Bond's Burgers. A guy named Ronnie sold me this cassette with songs from the band from the 70s and 80s. Though it doesn't have much to do with the tapes I've been uploading, it still counts as BSI Lost Media, even though I was told Bunny Smiles did sell this album back in the days. I'll try uploading more tapes soon. In the meantime, enjoy the album." Other than the minor lore relevance, the album itself is nothing too special overall in the Walten Files universe. I don't think there's any lore relevance to the tracks, as they all seem to be just covers of popular 70s songs at the time. Brian Stells. Brian Stells was the former facility caretaker for the Bunny Smiles K-9 storage facility during the Relocate Project. He is seen in the company introductory tape episode, and gets brutally mutilated and paralyzed while having a grisly encounter with the withered Bond animatronic. The Bond animatronic had mistaken him for Sophie, Jack Walten's daughter. This is most likely due to the fact that he was wearing the same purple uniform Sophie was shown wearing earlier during the Bond sleepover segment. It is unknown why Bond would want to attack Sophie, but it will probably be a plot point that we'll figure out more as the series goes on. Brian's demise was completely swept under the radar to the general public, with hardly anyone knowing what actually happened to him. One piece of information that will be relevant later is his acknowledgement of the stench of the facility, which will play a bigger importance later on. Shad the Sheep. Shad the Sheep is an animatronic and a member of the Showstoppers. In the Bunny Farm tape, she has a calm and mellow personality, and is hinted at being Bond's love interest. Other than that, she also makes a heavy appearance in the Relocate Project episode, where she is the character shown touring the future BSI workers around the storage facility, and what their tasks and goals will be. Rosemary Walten. As I mentioned before, Rosemary is the wife of Jack Walten. In the Relocate Project episode, the sheep character Shaw is used to introduce the BSI technicians to the storage facility. Once Shaw enters the basement, we are greeted with a message in reverse. which after decoding states that Rosemary was brutally mutilated and shoved into the Shaw animatronic suit by Bond himself, with her claiming that she'll become beautiful in the process. The reason why Rosemary had an encounter with Bond in the first place was because after the disappearance of Jack, Rosemary would return to the restaurant every night in hopes that Jack would return. On one of these nights, she heard a voice telling her where Jack was. She was lured into the employees only room by Bond, and is now heavily implied to be haunting the Shaw the Sheep animatronic, after the events that led to her becoming beautiful. First anniversary. For the first anniversary of the Walten Files, the creator Martin Walls put together a video showcasing some of his favorite works the fandom has created to the song Perfect Day by Lou Reed. The video has zero actual lore relevance, and only serves as an appreciation video to the passionate fans of the series. This is also where the Walten Files Patreon page was announced, and as of now, has a well-deserved count of 334 patrons and growing. I'll link the Patreon in the description as well if you are interested in checking it out and supporting Martin and his series. Other than that, there's not much to say more since these categories don't really have to do much with the lore of the Walten Files. K-9. K-9 is the storage facility used to store items after the shutdown of Bond's Burgers. The storage facility is where many of the most gruesome deaths took place in the shady history of the BSI company. The most notable one being Brian Stells, who was aforementionedly paralyzed by Bond before being killed, and cited under as missing. There was another earlier death in the facility though, and we'll get to that in just a second. Billy the Clown. Billy is a clown animatronic that was somewhere in Bond's Burgers, but it's not explicitly stated where, as he is not one of the 4 showstoppers seen to be active on stage with the rest, possibly being his own Foxy-like side attraction. Even though we see more of his personality in the Bunny Farm game, not much is known about him still, as he only shows up for a few lines in the beginning. His animatronic form, much like the rest of the animatronics, is a lot more interesting though. Ashley. Ashley Parks is one of the 3 technicians sent to the BSI storage facility for the Relocate Project. The 2 other technicians, Hillary and Kevin, claimed that the Relocate Project would be unsuccessful due to the state of the animatronics and the short time limit they were given by the company. Ashley believed that the key given to them by Bunny Smiles would help them finish fixing up the showstoppers in time, and she snuck out at night to see where it would lead. While the 2 other technicians were asleep, Ashley found herself in the back rooms of the storage facility. After exploring for a while, she came across the Billy the Clown animatronic, and noticed that he has an empty cassette player in his stomach, and finds the tape to put inside of him. At first, nothing seemed to be too out of the ordinary, since Billy plays the song that he was created to do, albeit the song does kinda sound distorted. But since this is a horror series, something obviously has to go horribly wrong. The song gets interrupted, and the names
Jack, Susan, Charles, Rosemary, Sophie
are heard. After the tape is done playing, Bond catches Ashley and stuffs her into the Billy animatronic. Ashley's death occurred on July 14th, 1978. Lucky You. Lucky You is one of the first few unlisted videos hidden throughout the episodes of the Walten Files. It starts off with a montage of key events of Bond's Burgers before its abrupt closing. It then explains more about Sophie's pill prescription, and although it isn't explicitly stated that the pills do make her forget things yet, the repeated line of "safety in pills, Sophie" is heard throughout the majority of the tape. It is unknown who is talking in this tape, but if I had to guess, it would either be Bond or Jack Walton. More evidence pointing to this would be the text that appears in the video. The text reads, "Oh, can't you see? I made them beautiful. I don't know how. I didn't even mean to, but I did. They try to talk to us, through analog. They will be heard. This is their cry for help. Besides, they want you to know what happened that year. But we must be patient. Look, they are filled with life. They dance to the music. They laugh and sing along. They're perfect. They are beautiful. They will see you soon, Sophie." Buzu. Buzu is the last out of the showstoppers. He doesn't necessarily play that big of a role in the series as of now. He is shown to be a magician-type character with a deep British accent. He is also the protagonist of his own non-canon tape that was released around Christmas time. We'll talk more about that tape later, though. Charles. Admittedly, this entry should have been much higher on the iceberg, so I'm just gonna cover it now as it adds more context to our previous entry, and you could probably guess why. As of now, there isn't much known about Charles, but it is heavily implied that he is possessing the Buzu animatronic due to his minor appearances in Bunny Farm being heavily linked to Buzu. He was one of the names mentioned by the secret tape inside Billy too, so he has some sort of involvement with the company, or just with Jack and Felix in general. But you know, speaking of which, I feel it's finally time to get to that. Felix Kranken. I have been holding off from talking about Felix for a while, and there is a big reason for that. Felix is noted as being a friendly man, and got along well with Jack during their time forming Bunny Smiles Inc. He suffered a lot from extreme alcoholism though, and he is very self-centered about himself, as he addresses himself as
a man with not only a giant brain, but also a giant heart.
In the Relocate Project tape, as well as seemingly taking all the credit for Bond's Burgers after the disappearance of Jack Walton. Martin Walls himself has stated that Felix is a man who believes he is good deep down inside of him, but can never bring himself to change his own actions, leading to further damages to his relationships as well as other things around him. And nothing is more notable than the accident. There is a big piece of information that I've been laying off from this entire video, and that is the existence of Jack Walton's two other children, Ed and Molly. The two of them are both younger than Sophie, and on May of 1974, Felix gets a call from Jack. Jack asks Felix to do a small favor. Ed and Molly both have a school party, and no one to drop them off, as Jack has to finish up paperwork and his wife Rosemary is taking Sophie to the dentist. Felix reluctantly accepts the request, and Jack instructs Felix to pick them up at 5 and bring them home by 9. While they were at their school party, Felix was drinking the whole time, but he still drove the two kids home. Both were able to catch on to this, but Felix denies the allegations, saying that he's just a little dizzy. But his actions finally caught up to himself, and the first tragedy out of the entire series finally happens. Felix crashes the car, and riddled with guilt, fear, and possibly adrenaline, buries the two children in the Santa Juanes forest. While all this time, Jack tries to get a hold of him, wondering where did his children go. 2 weeks later, Jack Walton goes missing. SY05. This is the name of an account that has commented on all Walten Files episodes of importance. The account usually comments on the videos in a base 64 cipher. When decoded, the one on company introductory tape reads, "The first pieces of this puzzle have been placed. The puzzle is far from a solution, however. Be wary of the hints that appear over time. One misdirection can throw off the entire course of this puzzle forever." On the Relocate Project episode, his commented decoded reads, "More puzzle pieces have been laid out for you. 2 pieces are crucial to slowly achieving the solution. Find the pieces, return to me, and meet me at the intersection. See you soon." Although nothing is confirmed, we can assume that these 2 pieces are regarding 2 lines of a YouTube link that are split together throughout the video, the full link together bringing you to Lucky You. His final comment is on Bunny Farm. It reads, "The puzzle pieces are here for you now, and they are in a very similar fashion to the ones that you pieced months ago. Remember the methods, and look for the pieces, and you'll have another segment complete." It is safe to assume that he means another secret tape in this message. We'll talk more about that later. Shaw Burger. On a completely other note, the Shaw Burger is a visual gag used in Bunny Farm. It comes out of absolutely nowhere, and has been the topic of tons of fan art and just general memes from the community for it. It seems to become a fan favorite joke from the series. The Mysterious House. The Mysterious House is the first of the non-canon tapes of the Walten Files, and was made to celebrate Halloween. The special starts with 2 original characters, Tammy and Ducky. We follow their trick-or-treating journey as they complain about the lack of candy they have gotten for the night. They suggest going to more houses, but are cut off by a picture of a missing poster for one Johnny Bear, who was last seen on October 31st, 1978. Tammy dares her and Ducky to visit a mysterious house in the woods before they go home, and when showing up, they are met by Shaw, as well as a strange depiction of Bond known as Pumpkin Rabbit. The 2 are shown around the house and get their picture taken, as they frame up pictures of all their guests throughout every Halloween. We can catch a glimpse of Johnny Bear right before we are taken back to the other characters. Eventually, the 2 get in sleeping bags and rest for the night. Ducky is seen getting out of his sleeping bag and wandering around before calling out to Tammy. Once Tammy awakens, she spots Billy standing in the corner. He doesn't do anything, though, so she continues down to the basement, where she sees the mangled corpse of Ducky, as well as the other children. Pumpkin Rabbit shows up once again, telling Tammy that she needs to be punished for snooping around the house. Pumpkin Rabbit takes off his mask, and the screen glitches out. The short ends of a close-up picture of Tammy's mangled face. After the special aired, The Pumpkin Rabbit character has become a fan favorite in the Walten Files community for his design, and just the general fear he makes you feel in the episode. I like him a lot because I am personally a sucker for golden variants of animatronics, and he looks a lot like Spring Bonnie too, who is my favorite FNAF character, so that gives him even more points in my book. Close as fast as it opened. Going back to the Lucky You video, there is a montage of key events of Bond's Burgers. We can see that the day of opening was June 28th, 1974, the first birthday party being on the 30th of 74, and the last show before closure being on July 19th, 1974. The location was only open for less than 2 weeks, and with all that we have discussed now, we can come to some conclusions on why it would have closed as fast as it did. Felix killed Jack. Although not confirmed, the theory that Felix is the one behind the disappearance of Jack Walten has been gaining a lot of notoriety. The disappearance of Jack Walten happened about 2 weeks after the accident killing both of Jack's children. And maybe as a way to not get caught, it is possible that Felix is the reason why Jack went on to possess the Bond animatronic. Another theory is that Bond was programmed by Felix to attack anyone who looked like Jack. That goes for anyone in a Bunny Smiles uniform, such as Brian Stells, or anyone closely related to Jack, such as Rosemary or Sophie. It's unknown why this would have been planned though. Maybe Felix wanted all the credit to Bunny Smiles for himself for a better wealth distribution? He did only credit himself after the disappearance of Jack. Only time can tell on this one, really. Showbear. Showbear is a mysterious character that has only shown up in sparse occasions. He makes minor appearances in the Relocate Project, Bunny Farm, and Lucky You. Showbear seems to be a character that is trying to help Sophie remember the things that happened to her and her family in the past. His biggest role was in Bunny Farm, as he is the key reason to why Sophie got to remember what happened to her younger siblings, since he is the one that allowed Sophie to enter that area of the game. As of now, it is unknown who Showbear is particularly supposed to represent. In my opinion, the only real candidates to who he could be as of now are either Ed or Molly, or even possibly Felix. They are the only ones who are aware of the crash, since they were the only ones to partake in it. As of what we know for now, no one else knew about the crash. Showbear will most likely make more appearances in the series as time goes on, and we will most likely eventually find out what his purpose in this story really is. Jenny Letterson. Jenny Letterson is Sophie's girlfriend and the one actively responsible for the events of Bunny Farm. All we know is that her and Sophie reside in the Elephant Hotel in Brighton, Michigan. The arcade of Bunny Farm was sent to the hotel, and the both, mainly Sophie, have been documenting what they find while playing the Bunny Farm game. And with all that we've talked about now, we know how that played out. Guilty. Guilty is another secret tape hidden in the playlist of the Walten Files, meaning that it is canon. The tape shows Felix's documentation of the state of Bunny Smiles, and how the formation of the company is going. Everything seems normal for the first few documentations. Felix introduces himself and Jack Walten, as well as the company, and then wishes Bunny Smiles employees a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year in tape 2. Things start to turn downhill once you get to the tape that was made on May 2nd of 1974. Felix admits that he has a problem with alcoholism, but will still not own up to his mistakes, and seemingly committed more mistakes throughout the short active time Bond's Burgers was still open. If it's not obvious by now, Felix Kranken is shaping up to be the main antagonist of the Walten Files. Pete the Hippo and Holly the Horse. These two are very minor characters that show up in Bunny Farm. Pete the Hippo is the one that will appear first, and is the character that helps the others find fruits. We see his family later when Banny releases the farm animals into the Hippo house later in the tape. Speaking of which, Holly is shown to be the one taking care of the animals, and is the one who tasks you with retrieving them back after Banny lets them out. It's unknown if these characters will ever get something like an animatronic form, or play a bigger role in the story of the Walten Files. If I had to assume though, this will probably be their only appearance. Boozoo's Ghosts. This is the second non-canon tape made for the Walten Files at around the time of Christmas. The tape itself is a parody based on the story of A Christmas Carol, which you all are probably familiar with. Boozoo takes the role of Scrooge in this story, and the special starts with Boozoo berating Banny for dropping a mug from which Banny needs to pay for, despite her not being paid by Boozoo himself. The standard plot of A Christmas Carol is set throughout the majority of the beginning of the special, with Boozoo not believing in the spirit of Christmas, etc. The interesting stuff starts to happen when the ghosts visit him in his sleep. These segments are very disturbing with the graphic imagery we are accustomed to in the Walten Files. The ending plays you for a twist though. Instead of Buzu waking up from his night terrors and learning the true meaning of Christmas, he instead dies in his sleep, not being able to learn his lesson. There is a lot more to be said about this special, and we'll get to most of it later, especially when we talk about the new character created just for this special. Cybertech Fun. Cybertech is the parent company of Bunny Smiles Inc., seemingly also created by Jack and Felix. It is unknown if this entity will play a bigger role in the story, or if there are more off-branches of Cybertech Fun than just Bunny Smiles Inc. I do find it very interesting that Jack and Felix decided to make a parent company for a company that doesn't really seem to need one. It's what mainly makes me believe that there are more branches of Cybertech Fun than just Bunny Smiles that will be explored sometime in the future. Spin.mp4. This was a joke video uploaded almost a year ago of Martin's character and the sprite of Bond from Bunny Farm dancing to the song You Spin Me Right Round by Dead or Alive. The video obviously holds no lore relevance, but I find it interesting in retrospect, as this was technically a teaser for Bunny Farm 7 months before it would even come out. Goes to show how much time it takes to produce these episodes. Linda Thompson. Linda Thompson is the ex-wife of Felix Kranken. In the Bunny Farm episode, her diary entries appear, explaining Felix's descent into alcoholism and how it's ruining their relationship, and that she is going to be leaving him and going to Hurricane, Utah, a cheeky reference to the FNAF series. Linda may play a bigger role in the future, but it's unlikely. She most likely does not know what happened in the accident, so her role going forward will probably be very minor. Rocket. Like Showbear, Rocket is another character that appears only sparsely during the Walten Files. He is a doll that was built by Jack and Felix for Ed and Molly. He's only made sparse appearances in all the tapes up until now, but his most prominent role is in the Bunny Farm episode, where after the crash, we see Rocket is supposedly holding the souls of both Ed and Molly at the same time. It's unclear if their haunting of Rocket will become more relevant as time goes on. Perhaps you'll even see more of them haunting the Rocket doll in action in a later tape. Rocket is still shrouded in mystery as of now, so only time can really tell. The Uploader. The Uploader is still one of the most mysterious characters in the Walten Files. We know next to nothing about him besides his name being Anthony, and that apparently he is uploading these tapes in real time, as he mentions the pandemic in the description of the Relocation Project episode. Other than that, he leaves a lot of questions to be asked. What's his connection with BSI? Where did he find these tapes? Does he know something that we don't? We can't really say for sure, but as time goes on, we may figure out. Everywhere at the End of Time samples. In the tape Lucky You, we can hear what seems to be an even grainier version of the song It's Just a Burning Memory by The Caretaker off the album Everywhere at the End of Time. Although the inclusion of the song could have just been done as a way to make the video spookier, the Everywhere at the End of Time album is supposed to be an album about exploring dementia and memory loss. Although it's not particularly dementia, there is a theme of memory loss in the series, especially with Sophie and her medication. This sample is also played in an episode that pretty much establishes that the pills make Sophie forget things. So personally, I think Martin most definitely chose this sample intentionally. Harmony and Horror Henry and Buzu's Ghosts. In the Buzu's Ghost tape, there is a very short cameo of Henry from Harmony and Horror. Harmony and Horror is another FNAF-inspired tape series that follows toys more than it does animatronics. You probably know it better as the Baddington tapes. Henry is one of the titular characters of the series, and he is a ventriloquist doll. Obviously, this doesn't mean anything too significant, as this is a non-canon tape anyways. Mortality. While we're still on the topic of Buzu's Ghosts, let's talk about the special variant of Bond that showed up in it. He's the last of the ghosts to visit Buzu in his dreams, right after the sad ghosts of past experiences portrayed by Billy, and the jolly ghosts of present times, as portrayed by Shaw. Just like the Pumpkin Rabbit and the real-world version of Bond, Mortality is a ruthless killing machine, described to take the place of death incarnate. Although he is my least favorite for me design-wise, his character is most definitely the most cruel and ruthless out of the trio. His killing strategy seems to be false hope, as he is seen making Buzu believe he survived his night terrors, right before finally finishing him off after all the torture he has gone through. Truly a brutal character. 32 Minutos. 32 Minutos is another non-canon tape that is supposed to be a parody of the Chilean children's show 31 Minutos. I understand absolutely nothing that went on in this video, but in context to what it is about, it's probably pretty funny. FindJackWalton.com. FindJackWalton.com seems to be an in-universe website made to solve the cold case of Jack Walton. The text on the website reads, Mr. Walton became highly known in Brighton, Michigan for his company Bunny Smiles Incorporated and his restaurant franchise Bond's Burgers. However, he would mysteriously disappear 2 weeks before the opening of Bond's. Little has been known about Jack's whereabouts for the past 4 decades, but there is still hope to get closure in this man's disappearance. Most recent news about the Waltons' disappearance goes all the way back to the year of 1979. Felix Kranken, company co-founder of Bunny Smiles, would state the following in a radio interview. I still wonder what happened to my best friend. To this day, I get people asking how I've handled the situation, how I've managed to keep up with this company knowing that he's been gone for years. It's hard to look back at Jack, because I know those happy memories and experiences I had with Walton and his family will never happen again, and he'll never get to see what our dream company turned out to be, but there's still hope, I guess. Felix Kranken, MLBQ FM Radio, March 29th, 1979. Please contact us in case of any sighting or clues of what could have happened to Mr. Walton. When you click on the Contact Us page, you are greeted with this. Although it's very hard to make out what it is, it appears to be Jack Walton inside the Bond suit. Very disturbing indeed. Health Department PSA. Health Department PSA is a now deleted non-canon tape. It was made in March of last year and was used as a way to educate people on the pandemic while trying to still be in universe, I think? I don't know. It's a very strange video and I can see why Martin may have taken it down, as it's not really all that relevant anymore. There is a re-upload of it though, so that's good. Bond Racing. Wow, a fan project of a fan project. Bond Racing was an upcoming choose-your-own-adventure series based on the Walten Files, and is being made by Puppet Jewels. At least I think so? I don't know. It seems that work on it hasn't been active since March, and may have been something that was either scrapped or made up as a joke. It sounds like an interesting idea, so I hope it gets picked up and worked on more in the future. The Walten Files Relocation Nights. Relocation Nights is so far the only fan game for the Walten Files. I think it's unfinished right now, but it's pretty interesting. I hope it gets updated in the future though. The Shadow Man. The Shadow Man is a strange figure that mainly appears in the Relocate Project tape in small appearances. Not much is known about the Shadow Man other than he watches from the shadows, as his name suggests. There are a lot of theories on who the Shadow Man could be, ranging from Rosemary to Sophie to even SYO5. We can only know in time. HD images. There are plenty of HD versions of certain stills that can be found on either Martin's Twitter or his Patreon. Seeing these drawings in a higher resolution without the added VHS grain is pretty cool, as behind the scenes looks for this kind of stuff is usually thin and far between. I hope Martin continues to post them because I love things like this. Local 57. At the beginning of Bunny Farm, we could see a news broadcasting of the St. Juana Forest by a Local 57. This is the same forest that Ed and Molly, as well as Brian Stells, have died in. Obviously, it's a reference to Local 58, which started the trend of analog horror to begin with. Very clever, Martin. Atari founders. Both Jack and Felix's face are edited pictures of the founders of Atari, Jack particularly being an edited picture of Norrin Bushnell, who also went on to form Chuck E. Cheese. Very fitting. 6/11/74. Not only is this the date of Jack Walton's disappearance, this is also the date on the tape that Ashley puts into Billy at the end of the Relocate Project. Judging that the tape lists off more names than just Jack's, there can be something that happened on this date other than just Jack's disappearance. Whoever made it obviously knows what's going on, so whoever that is will likely be revealed eventually. Realife K-9 facility. A few weeks ago, someone posted a photo of what looks like to be the origin of the K-9 facility. It's supposedly a bunker located in Poland used to store weapons. It's unknown how or why Martin chose this place in particular to base off the K-9 facility in the Walten Files, but it's still really cool that someone was able to find it. The ticking clock. Remember SYO5? They have one video on their channel from February 2021 called The Ticking Clock. It was likely made to promote the upcoming release of Tape 3, as the description reads, "As the days tick away, we get closer to the next set of pieces being released, but only as the clock continues to tick, only as the clock continues to tick." SYO5 is definitely one of the most interesting characters so far in the Walten Files. What's his affiliation to Bunny Smiles? Will we ever know? We know that he seemingly exists in the timeline of the Walten Files as well as the real world, and takes on the role as an ARG-like guide character. It is unknown if he will release more teasers in the future. Who created the tapes? I'll leave the video off of a question for you all. This is a question I had since I first viewed the first episode of the series last year. Obviously, the tapes were created by Martin Walls, but in universe, most parts of the tapes were created by Bunny Smiles, but the other parts like Jack Walton being shoved in every second of the company tapes really raises a question on how did these get here. Did Jack Walton create them? There is a lot of evidence that points towards him being the one to create the tapes, especially since Jack is heavily implied to be in control of the Bond animatronic. It's either Jack Walton possessing these tapes, as well as the Bunny Farm game, or it's SY05, or someone else completely. All I know is that the question will not have a definitive answer anytime soon. Well, there you have it. We went through some of the most common and most obscure findings of the Walten Files series so far. Since this series is still a work in progress, it is possible that by the time you see this video, there will be more information and tapes coming out for the series. Since I only had to go off of 3 tapes, I do apologize if this was shorter than you expected. But maybe sometime in the future I'll make an updated Iceberg covering more tapes that are not yet released. Martin has stated that we are only on season 1 after all, so this is certainly not over yet. But until then, the clock keeps ticking, and the mystery is still unraveling. So thank you for watching. See ya!